You are listening to the Cattle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech. So I actually want to welcome a special guest back to the show today. We've got Mr. Todd Rodgers of Walter P. Moore in the house. So Todd, thank you for being here again.
Yes, sir.
All right. Excellent. So Todd is the BIM Manager at Walter P. Moore, and he also sits on the board of directors for Augie and is one of the editors for the Augie World magazine. And, you know, despite having been on this show before, Todd agreed to come back today and talk to us, and I have no idea why. So, hey, we definitely appreciate it, man.
It's kind of like cattle being drawn to the slaughter, huh?
Exactly. And you knew what you were walking into. That's the sad part. All right. So, Todd, why don't you tell our listeners about your background in the design world, where you started, and how you got to the august personage you are today?
Well, I graduated from the Art Institute of Houston back in 1994, and took me about 6 months to land a job. And I got a job as a CAD operator. I was working in DOS back then, and it was a civil engineering firm, thank goodness. It wasn't architectural.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
I've done both.
So I worked in the industry, about 15, 16 years, and I landed a job as a CAD manager. And I lasted about 6 months, and I threw my hands in there and said, I am done with this completely. So ended up working for a Autodesk reseller for about 9, almost 10 years. And it got sold, and the reseller business, as we all know, is kind of falling to the wayside, and they're getting bought up by the bigger guys. So I decided to go back into production, and I got this job at Walter P. Moore, March of 2018, and been there ever since.
Nice. And I don't bless you. You were smart enough to get out of that CAD management field. I did that for over a decade. You're a smarter man than I am. All right. So our topic, so today we're going to be talking about the Autodesk AEC Collection, and we're going to see if it's a good thing or a bad thing, and also which parts of it are worthwhile. The idea behind the AEC Collection, as Autodesk markets it, is that you get all the design tools, that you're ever going to need for one single subscription price. It's this great package, right? You get Revit and Civil 3D and AutoCAD and InfraWorks and Navisworks and a dozen other Autodesk tools for one annual fee. Right now, price-wise, I see that as a pretty reasonable move, right? Since the collection, right, costs a lot less than buying all of those packages individually. Just to kind of throw it out for reference for everybody listening, right? To buy an annual license of just Revit by itself is like $2,400, right? And, the collection, which includes Revit and, 16 other design packages, is only $2,900. Right? And that is a pretty good bargain, right? The question, though, is, do you really get a benefit from all that software? All right? And that's why we have Todd in today. He's not afraid of giving us honest answers. All right? Sorry, just getting some feedback there for you, Todd. You're like bouncing around. So our listeners get to hear you moving about. It's all good. All right. So Todd, what do you think about the AEC Collection? I mean, is there an actual benefit to having all these software packages, or are you just buying them because they're on sale, like the way that my wife goes out shopping for canned goods?
I would say both. Yeah, you get all this stuff, and how much of it do you actually use? I would say, so I'm in the infrastructure department, and I would say maybe 3% of the whole infrastructure department actually utilizes more than one piece of software in the collection. So it's just sitting there. So it's up to me to do training videos and teach them how to use these other tools inside there. However, that's loss of production time. So, it's kind of a vicious circle there, the catch-22. So as far as what you get for the price, yeah, it's fantastic. But what are you going to do with all of it?
Exactly. It's like I tell my wife with the canned goods, oh, it's great. You got a wonderful deal. You got 300 cans of beets for $1. But who's eating these beets? It ain't going to be me. So, same concept. Yeah, it's good price-wise, but in reality, I don't know what it really brings to the table for folks.
Yeah, it's bug out food.
There you go. You use it if you have no other choice, just like the other software packages.
Exactly.
So, all right. So, the thing is that the AEC Collection is, hands down, right? It is Autodesk's most popular product, right? At least, in the AEC industry, right? It's hands down what everybody has. And I have it on my system right now. Right? And for me, it's actually a perfect set of tools, right? Since I do a lot of training and support for various Autodesk packages here at Zentech, right? Even though we're not a reseller, all right, and neither do we really want to be for Autodesk. But the big decision that every company I think needs to make is if they need those additional software packages or not, right? And what the downside may be to having them. And I think that there's more there to consider than just the cost of the software itself, right? Listen, getting all the software you could ever want for just another $500 is a great bargain, right? But it's still $500 for every user, and that adds up really quickly, right? And you also need to consider, I think, all of those secondary concerns that come into play. Configuration costs, distribution costs, IT work, setup, backup. Right, and just trying to distribute all of those packages to everybody's system, right? So there's a lot more cost than just that basic fee. So Todd, let's talk about that. Where do you think the biggest cost and time factors our listeners will have to face, right? When they're looking at installing 17 different software systems for every single user in their company?
Right. So So for us, we have two people, me and David Harrington, that create software deployments for everyone. Now, it's very time consuming for us to do that. We got to do a few tweaks here and there. We got to edit the INI file and da-da-da-da. But it makes it easier when you got a large company like this, for sure. Absolutely a lot easier. But the problem I face is all the doggone updates and how to push out the updates for all these products. Yeah. So when you get the updates, you can't, recreate the deployment and have them rerun the deployment. You just got to push an email out and hope those guys install it, which is really tough, really tough. And, on top of that, Autodesk is pretty notorious for pushing out these updates and it breaking other stuff. So then we got to go, hey guys, now you got to uninstall the update. So that is the problem we're facing. It's the doggone updates. It's not as much pushing out the AEC Collection software to get installed. It's the updates.
That's a lot of time. Like I said, people are busy. They just don't have the time to sit and put patches in every 3 weeks because Autodesk is fixing something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, then you couple that with the Microsoft updates too, right? And then now you've got a nice happy mix.
Yeah, between the two of them, you just spend all day doing nothing but updates. All right. So Rockwell, let's bring you then in on the conversation. So from a sales standpoint, I know that Autodesk has almost everybody convinced to use the collections because you're getting so much of the quote unquote free software. But from a practical standpoint, do you find that most of our clients are using all that software, some of that software, or like Todd was saying, do you see that they're sticking with a single primary design system?
I think it all depends on what you're doing. From the architecture side, I think there's more folks trying to make use of some of the other products like Enscape or 3ds Max. But on the civil side, it's there's Civil 3D is the king, right? I mean, it's AutoCAD and Civil 3D or mostly Civil 3D. So it all comes down to what you're doing.
Yep.
So, all right. I mean, I actually have to believe that most folks are not taking the time to train everybody in their company on using these collections on all the different software systems that they have. Look, if you are, please call Zentech, right? We love training your folks, and I could use a raise since, Rocco doesn't pay me enough. So I had like a frog in my throat there. Sorry, Rocco. That may have sounded like I was complaining. It was. Seriously though, I mean, in a lot of cases, right, the software is being installed and it's just being left there in case, right? It's just taking up room on people's system, and that can cause problems from, the IT side of things, right, in terms of time and support and backup and troubleshooting on top of the costs of that software. So Todd, what type of firms and workloads do you see the AEC collection being, genuinely beneficial for? I mean, are there certain types of multidiscipline firms that you think can really benefit from that kind of an offering?
Yeah, so really it boils down to just that, the multidiscipline firms. You got, us, for example, doing structural and civil, HOK, people like that have like a mixture of architecture and other things. It's definitely the multidiscipline firms. A regular firm, they end up buying this and they never use anything but one piece of software, and that's it. So what's the use? And
even though it's a good bargain, right, you still just spent money for nothing.
Exactly.
It's not worthwhile to my mind. So you kind of have to look at it, folks, and think about what you do. If you do architectural and structural and construction and civil, sure, this is to your benefit. But if you're strictly a civil house or if you're strictly an architectural house, you don't need this, right? So
why not let us customize it?
There you go. Put that same time, money, and effort and training into optimizing that one system that you use every day. It's a smarter process, I think. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're going to take a break here to listen to today's sponsor. And when we get back, I want to get into the major software included in the AEC collection and get Todd's opinion on each of those. All right, folks, we'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's episode of the Cattle Call Podcast is brought to you by Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. We're bringing ourselves to you. Aren't we nice? So we wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the things that we offer at Zentech Consultants. In particular, we wanted to talk to you today about our offerings around developing and upgrading your CAD standards. We are here to help you guys with all of your CAD standard needs, from ongoing drafting and design support to block and library development, full CAD standards development, right, CAD version upgrades, really whatever it is that you guys need when it comes to developing, implementing, and tweaking your current CAD standards. Or like I said, if you don't have any yet, we can help you build them from scratch. So Rocco, why don't you tell all the good folks how they can reach out to us and start that conversation?
Yeah, there's a lot of information, people, on our website, zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Or you can give us a call, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
Ooh, nice. CAD standards from Zentech Consultants. You're listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, folks, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. I am Jim, and with me is Rocco, and our special guest in the studio today is Todd Rodgers of Walter P. Moore. And we're talking about the Autodesk AEC Collections, and we're getting Todd's thoughts on that solution. So I wanted to start in on the specific software components of the collection, right, and what the pros and the cons are for each of them. And look, there are 17 packages in that collection, and we are not going to cover them all. But I'd really like to talk about the big three, which are, Revit, Civil 3D, and AutoCAD, and then we'll get into what Todd thinks are the other important tools in the collection. But let's start with the Revit solution, since that's the big player in the BIM world. So Todd, you're one of our BIM experts here. You got a lot of expertise in that background, right? And for a lot of people, that means Revit. Is Revit the best BIM package out there? And where do you think it shines versus where do you think it falls short of what you guys need?
Well, one thing about Revit is it was purchased, right? So it's actually a pretty solid piece of software. They're not breaking it very often. So
I love that you're pointing out that Autodesk didn't develop it; they bought it, and that's why it works.
Hey, it is what it is, man.
I ain't gonna argue with you.
So as far as the best BIM package out there, they're getting pretty good at this BIM 360 now, and I think that's pretty much where the BIM platform is going to transition to. And if they could get that, up to speed and up to par with all the other softwares, I think it would be, the thing to have for a BIM platform. So I'll get people contacting me, almost daily about their BIM stuff. They got BIM this, BIM that, and it's just BIM, BIM, BIM. It's just everybody's trying to get to that peak of who's got the best BIM software, and it all looks the same and it all runs the same. So, it's hard to say.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true. That's true of anything, really, right? It's like a pickup truck. You want to go buy a new one? Who has the best one? Well, it comes down to the small details, right? It's a pickup truck. They all do the same thing. It's
That's exactly right.
So it's all the small things that make that difference. So,
yeah.
So another aspect I think to the BIM world, which very often gets ignored, unless you're like Todd and I, and you like to play in the civil environmental space. It's the development of the geospatial site models, right? And that's where Civil 3D, which is Autodesk's flagship civil design system, that's where that comes into play. And it's part of the AEC collections, and it's one of the most used civil systems in the world today. Even though I think there are a number of really solid alternatives out there, but Civil 3D can really handle almost all aspects of civil modeling and BIM, along with a fair amount of mapping and GIS data import as well. So, Todd, what are your thoughts on Civil 3D? I mean, do you think it gives the tools that most firms need, or is it limited to a few specific types of design firms? And also, right, same question as with Revit. What are the big pluses and what are the big negatives that you see for firms working with Civil 3D?
Does it give all the tools? No, absolutely not. That's why there's so many of my friends out there developing, add-ins for this program. It just don't have what we need. It has some great bells and whistles, but those bells and whistles, they have to be shined and tuned. It's almost like a giant workaround. You're constantly doing workarounds in this software. And not only that, it's the corruption that happens in this software. One person gets in there, they don't know what they're doing, and you can corrupt a drawing that you'll never be able to get back into. And the grading in this software is just terrible. It's been that way since Land Development Desktop, and it's terrible. I looked at Open Site Designer the other day, and it is really cool when it comes to grading and parking lot layouts. I was just blown away at what these guys are doing. And, it all stemmed from, what was that, Site Ops.
Yeah, Site Ops was an amazing pack. I never did much care for their pricing model, which was always very weird to me. They did it by acreage for a very long time, which no one would touch. But I agree with you. I think there are a lot of better systems out there that have taken and moved away from that old LDD grading modeling concept that they carried forward into Civil 3D. The one that I love, I have been working recently with, I don't know if you've even looked at that, Civil Site Design.
Yes, sir. Y'all gave me a demo on that.
Oh, that's right. We did. Look at that.
Yeah.
See there? I didn't remember we gave you a demo. I'm a big fan of that. I mean, the grading features and the vertical profile and editors in there are the best I've seen.
Yeah, the corridors and intersections are amazing with civil site design. I couldn't believe it. It's just seamless. It's so easy.
Yeah, when you get, when you start to get to things where, something that takes, a day in Civil 3D that you can do in like 5 minutes in these other packages, that's a big game changer.
Exactly. And that's what the bosses are looking for.
It's all about speed and money. Just want to get it done. They don't want to hear about, oh, well, I had to go back and remodel this because somebody moved one thing a hair's breadth to the left and it destroyed the entire job.
Exactly.
That's never a fun conversation to have with the boss. All right. So, all right, Rocco. So let me throw this at you then. We'll start with you on this. So the last big package that's part of the AEC collection here is just plain old, what we call vanilla AutoCAD, right? It's the original 2D CAD system. And there are still folks out there who, just use basic 2D line work and sketching to handle their projects. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes basic drafting is all you need on a smaller job, right? You can wind up getting yourself so bogged down in 3D modeling and BIM data that your projects become not profitable. So in terms of that, how much do you see in terms of people who are using just basic vanilla AutoCAD, Rocco, versus those who are kicking forward and bringing on the whole AEC collection thing?
It all goes back again to what discipline you're in, and kind of, it's weird to say this, but kind of what stage you're at in life.
Okay.
I think a lot of the older folks who are out there still continue to use and love using AutoCAD. But I think the other, the younger generation is let's say growing up with using Revit on the architecture side. I don't think that AutoCAD is going away, anytime soon. It's a core, very stable product, and so I really don't see it going away. And do you guys disagree?
I don't disagree at all. I mean, yeah, you're exactly right. And, it's not just 2D anymore. You can do quite a bit in vanilla AutoCAD in the 3D realm now.
Yes, but I've always found that space to be a little bit better in AutoCAD in terms of more like the mechanical stuff. You can do some 3D work in there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a little limited in like the AEC space for like architecture and civil.
Oh yeah, we don't know what zebras are.
There you go. So all right, so then Todd, so where do you see that AutoCAD plays into modern design and construction, right? I mean, obviously you're saying you still think there's a place for it, and more importantly, I think do you think that AutoCAD specifically has risen to the challenge of handling modern design, or do you think that they're falling behind some of the other newer 2D CAD type systems?
Well, now they've got the AutoCAD 1, right? So they've thrown in all of the plant 3D stuff and some other stuff into AutoCAD. So it's very strange. I don't know why they really did that. As far as modern design and construction, that would be the only way to really do AutoCAD. There's just so much that people expect you to produce for them now that AutoCAD just really doesn't do it unless you're giving them a blueprint or a black line rather. And people don't like that anymore. They can't get the point across to these younger generation. They can't show them a set of plans that are printed out on a piece of paper and they go, oh yeah, I see what you're trying to do there. It just doesn't happen. You have to show them all the bells and whistles and orbit around and show them this and that and change this and that and let it update. Just the whole industry's changed so much, in the last 10 years. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and there's definitely a much bigger need now for those 3D presentations. But like I said, my only thing where I'm going to disagree with you a little bit there is I think that on smaller projects. Again, so you work at Walter P. Moore, you ain't working no small projects, But
No.
when you're doing the local McDonald's, you know what I mean, in a single strip mall kind of thing, getting to the point where you can do some rough visualizations, but full blown, BIM modeling and 3D presentations for the folks doing that type of work. I think that's a little bit harder. So I think that there is still a good portion of that gets played.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. Yeah, you're very true. And working with, the reseller for so long, there were architectural firms that are using AutoCAD LT.
We still see dozens of them all the time.
Yeah, sorry. That's where I go back to my point of what I was saying, that I still see a lot of people using AutoCAD.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. I mean, it's fairly cheap, and it's easy to use. Everybody knows how to use it.
It's easy. It's not a bad way to go, though. I will go so far as say I do think that there are newer, better developed 2D CAD systems out there than base AutoCAD.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not gonna get into a sales pitch on those today. So, Todd, let me ask you this then.
On BricsCAD today?
Yeah, it's all about BricsCAD today. So,
you're not going to try to turn me?
Hey, I'm telling you, man. It's some of the AI tools and some of like their quad tool and some of their basic 2D drafting tools are amazing. And what I love about them is that it's all one system where you can just convert it right up into the BIM. That's where I think AutoCAD's missing. They get separate packages. You work with a system like BricsCAD, you can do that 2D layout and design that a lot of us older guys are quick with to get the spacing and the base areas and escape routes and all the things you need to do. And then boom, you just go, okay, now let's convert this to a BIM model, and it converts it to 3D. It's like that's great stuff.
Fantastic.
That's where we can go with that. So let's get back to the AEC collection, though, Todd. So out of all of the other packages that we didn't talk about in the AEC collection, which ones do you think are the most useful and might be worth our listeners delving into and learning about in more detail?
So the ones we didn't mention, which would be InfraWorks. InfraWorks is a great visualization tool to get a point across and throw something quick together. I'll give you a quick example. University of Houston came into our office and had purchased this piece of land that ended up being in a wetlands area. And they were pretty upset. And they were like, are we able to use this land? And I was able to show the wetlands areas, and they needed a specific, square foot of building, a specific square foot of parking for 3 buildings and 3 parking lots. And I was able to do it live, showing them the square footage right there. And they left happy because that portion of the land they purchased could be used to build on. So they're very happy about that. So InfraWorks is a great tool. It's got shortcomings, of course, like anything else, but it's a great tool. Another one would be Format. Format is the competitor to SketchUp. Format's really cool. I love Format. It's a hell of a lot easier to use than SketchUp. SketchUp, I am just completely lost. Format, it works so easy, and one thing, everything pulls with it. It's really cool software. And of course, the clash detection and that you get with Navisworks Manage is pretty imperative for us, being utility-wise.
Yeah, all our construction clients absolutely love the Navisworks Manage for that, so they can see where things are hitting and where there's going to be problems before they start putting it in place.
Exactly, and it puts out a nice little report for you with a little thumbnail right beside it. It's fantastic. As far as, 3ds Max is cool, but the learning curve for that is like climbing Mount Everest, so, but other than that, that's pretty much the core products I use in it. I really don't touch much anything else in it.
All right, that's fair. That is kind of, I agree with you on just about all of those. Those are the other ones that impress me. So, all right, so then before we get out of here today, I'm gonna throw one last question to Todd, knowing that as always he's going to give us a very direct and honest answer. It's what he does. That's why we love having him on. So Todd, do you think that Autodesk is acting for the benefit of their clients with the AEC collection? Or do you think they're just trying to corner the entire design and construction world by putting tools onto people's station that they may not need today, but it keeps them from looking at other solutions when they might need it down the road because they've already got one? So why go look at anybody else?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure everyone's seen that big shenanigans that the architects wrote into Autodesk about that the CEO of Autodesk, Andrew Anagnos, replied to. Didn't agree with any of that except for the part where the architects wrote in complaining about it, right? The response to that was kind of rubbed me wrong a little bit, because it's not just the architects, it's all of us. It's all of us that have these pains in production. And honestly, it's been like this for a few years now. There's no progress in helping the customer out. You know, they want to show us a new feature in the software instead of fixing 5 others that have been sitting there for years that still don't work. It makes no sense to me. So I don't think they're acting for the benefit of the clients. Absolutely not. You know, I hate to say that because I've always been a big advocate for Autodesk, but it is what it is, you know.
And I know I threw that at you. It's a leading question because honestly, it bugs me to no end as well. Same reason. I've been using Autodesk products for almost 3 decades now, you know, and I loved them. I made my career, my family, my life, my home, all from, you know, being an expert in the Autodesk product line. And it really does bug me that, you know, I feel that their drive anymore, since they've gone to this subscription as a, you know, software as a subscription service model, it's about share price, and it's about driving money because their shares are going through the roof, and the CEO and the C-level guys are, you know, and they're not doing anything. They're not fixing problems. They're not adding any worthwhile features. They're not trying to optimize anything on any of their softwares. And I just, it frustrates me to no end. So I just wanted to get your thoughts there.
Yeah. And, you know, that's another thing too. I'm, you know, customers, when I work for the reseller, they call and they just scream at me. I'm like, I have no control over this.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel their pain, man, you know, and it's like watching a baby die, you know.
It's a terrible thing. You went from what was once, you know, just a great product line to now just, you know, what strikes me is just, you know, corporate bean counters making all the decisions to and damaging and killing what was a great product. So
that's exactly it, man.
So, all right. So I think we can wrap that up there. So again, Todd, I want to thank you for coming back and being your usual direct self. And I hope you will continue to be a guest and help us sort through all the hype and marketing BS that's out there in the CAD world. So thank you, sir, for being here.
Hell yeah.
All right. All righty, folks. We're going to get out of here. You have been listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us, 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.